What's the opposite of Thanksgiving? What do you think the opposite of Thanksgiving is?
Me.
Me. What else? Complaining. Regrets. Ingratitude. How about burnout? Burnout's the opposite of Thanksgiving. We'll just assume for today's talk, since that's the talk that I made up, that it's burnout. Burnout is the opposite of Thanksgiving. Now you think, gratitude, we bring our joy to each now moment. It's all a good thing, but the opposite is when we don't appreciate what's there. They found that burnout is not caused by people working too hard. Burnout is caused by the attitude with which people live their lives. Charles Fillmore explained all this. He said, the quality of your life is not measured by its length, but the fullness with which you enter into each now moment. That it's not the length of your life, it's the depth of your life. And the most important thing you can do is to live each day with joy, because misery is optional. Misery is optional. Together, misery is optional. Now, we're in the face of a lot of situations in this world. There's always situations in this world. Everyone's got personal, and we have global situations. What are we going to do with them? We have to make a decision where these situations end and where we begin, and yet still engage with them. And this is a tricky thing. It's called boundaries, it's called closure, it's called simplicity, and it's called self-worth and value. And those, coincidentally, not so coincidentally, are the 4 qualities that the London Business School found out align with people not being burned out. But the number 1 factor in not being burned out is whether somebody has a dog. That's true. Number 1 factor. And the number 2 factor is whether somebody leaves the building when it's time for lunch. Is that bizarre? These are little things that we can do to get outside of ourselves and yet to have good, clear boundaries in order to grow as souls. Look at it this way. You are a limitless being. In the level of being, you don't need boundaries. You don't have boundaries, right? I mean, in the level of being, I am you, and you are me, and you are he, and we are all together. I am the walrus. We're all one. We're all one. And on that level of oneness, of beingness, there are no boundaries. You don't need boundaries. And I've heard people say, I don't need boundaries. But on the level of doing, when you take that ineffable beingness and you put it into work, you need to channel it. It's like I grew up in California, and I went to college in the Central Valley, and it's dry there in the summer, and they have to irrigate. So they take the snow melt and they channel it through canals. You've got to have boundaries in order to use or put to work or put to use that wonderful energy, that beingness, that life that you are, that you know. And so we're going to talk a little bit about beingness, but this is the opposite. Thanksgiving is the opposite of burnout. I had a friend of mine, a minister, who said he was experiencing burnout. And I told this story to a woman who called me last week. She said that she was asked by somebody to call me. She's writing a magazine article on ministerial burnout. And she called me. She was told, call Greg. And the reason why is because this person saw me as someone who was a role model for not burning out. And the reason why is because she said, ask him about boundaries, having good boundaries. Having good boundaries. And, this is an important thing. Having good boundaries is really key to not burning out. And I shared with her a story about a friend of mine who was experiencing burnout in ministry. And he said he discovered his burnout at Thanksgiving dinner when his wife and he were sitting there and they finished everything. And he turned to her and he said, "What are we having for dessert?" And she said, "You just ate it." And he said, "Oh, I was looking forward to my favorite pumpkin pie." And she said, "You ate it." And she pointed at his plate, and there were the crumbs, and he hadn't noticed.
Oh, gosh.
He was experiencing burnout. So he looked at her and he said, "Did I enjoy it?" And so the pumpkin pie was there. Your pumpkin pie is there. Your life is there. What are you bringing to it? Are you enjoying it? Are you appreciating it? He realized that was the time for him to start thinking differently. And that next Sunday, he gave a talk that really came from a different place in his beingness. And he got some flack for it because it wasn't quite as slick and it wasn't quite as perfect and it wasn't quite whatever. but it had depth and meaning. And I happened to listen to it, and I talked to him. I said, that was, my hair stood on end. So I didn't think it was very good because it wasn't, polished and all the things it is. And I said, no, it was real. And on the strength of that talk, this is the truth, he ended up replacing me in that position when I moved out of town. I said to the board, you got to call this guy. But I'm telling you about this because it's about moving from that place of being where we're just kind of, where we're resisting life, to that place where we're appreciating life. And as I shared a moment ago, the London Business School found 4 things. One was boundaries, then closure, then simplicity, then value. And they found in one study that not only did having how many of you have dogs? Raise your hand. Realize that dogs, if you don't have a dog, don't worry about it, but they did say that the longevity of people who had heart attacks, number one factor wasn't diet or exercise or even prayer, it was having a dog. Why is that? Because dogs are in the now moment. They don't care, they don't argue with you, they want to be in the now moment. Eckhart Tolle is obsessed with dogs. Have you noticed that lately? He talks about dogs all the time. I read an interview with Modern Dog magazine. And there was an interview with Eckhart Tolle, and he said that he was on sabbatical, and he wasn't talking to anyone, wasn't taking any interviews, but he accepted 2 interviews. One was Unity magazine, and the other was Modern Dog magazine. And the woman asked, why did you accept Modern Dog? And he said, I asked myself, is this mine to do? Whenever there's something presenting, because people are always pulling on, is this mine to do? And when you called, I got a yes. And I follow that. I follow that. John Strickland is a Unity minister down in Atlanta. He was the director of Silent Unity. He wrote an article in Unity magazine. He said constantly people were approaching him as the director of Silent Unity saying, do this, do that, you should do this. Why aren't you doing that? And he said, even if all these ideas were good, most of them were, we couldn't. He says the question isn't, should I do something? It's, is it mine to do? Is it mine to do? Ask. You say, really? Yeah. You've got it built in. You've already got a built-in knower knowing something that knows. And so Eckhart Tolle, yes, I should talk. And in this, I should talk to Modern Dog magazine. He talked about how dogs balance the energy of your house. They actually are energy balancers. They are spiritual helpers or spiritual beings that help. Now you say, but I have a cat. But cats have good boundaries too. And my friend, I've told before about my friend who has a dog and a cat, and he said, if I call my dog, he comes. If I call my cat, he takes a message and gets back to me later. So cats are good. It's not about the animal you have. It's about what are you doing? What is it? What did Fillmore say? The quality of your life has to do with the fullness in which you enter into every now moment. You've got to put your heart into every now moment. And how do you do this? Well, getting back to that study, the London Business School. Boundaries. The first one was boundaries. What's boundaries? It's knowing what's mine to do, what's not mine to do. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. The courage to change the things I can. The wisdom to know the difference. Kenny Rogers, know when to hold them, when to fold them. What can you do? What's yours to do? What's not yours to do? And having your antenna open and knowing that and asking, is this mine to do? A lot of the stuff you think is yours to do is not yours to do. Boundaries is knowing where it ends and you begin. Where their demand or expectation ends and you begin. On the level of being, we don't need boundaries because we're all one. But on the level of doing, we must have good boundaries to channel our energy. And that means making good decisions, choosing to do the right thing. I've shared the story about the dogs who taught me. The dogs who taught me about engaging in the now moment and being present with pure being. I thought that I was all the tasks that I had to do. I was in burnout. I was dealing with a church. I'd been there a few months, and I was their 5th minister, and the 4 ministers left in 11 months. 11-month period, 4 ministers left. So I had my hands full, just trust me on that. And I was lying on the beach, but instead of, lying on the beach, I was figuring it out in my head. You ever do that? I got to figure it out. I got to get the solution. I got to do this in my mind. Some of that's okay, but it wasn't helping me. And this dog came up and stole my slipper, my shoe, and ran away with it. And started playing keep away with it. And another dog came up, and they would pass my shoe. And then the third dog came up, and they were passing the shoe, and they were playing keep away with me. And I suddenly realized, this is fun. I'm like a dog. They think I'm a dog. And so we go back and forth, and they're going back and forth with my shoe, and they give it to me, and I give it to them, and we're all playing keep away. And it was so great, and I'm thinking, this is so much fun. I wonder what it'd be like if I really become a dog. I wonder what they'll do. So I go, oh. And they looked at each other like, what? And they looked at me like, he's really a dog. And so they all started howling with me. We're all going, oh. And then playing keep away. And I did this for half an hour, 45 minutes. It was the best time I ever in my life. And then I realized, I'm not getting my work done. I'm not doing, yes, I wish I had a better stand to my story, but I learned something from it. I got this story out of it, but I went and I took my shoe and I went back and I started doing it, and the dogs kept coming up to me and sniffing and trying to poke at me, and I just ignored them, and they stole my shoe again. And the one dog went way out in the deepest water, and I finally got the shoe away, and the dog, I'll never forget the look on the dog's face when I took that shoe away for the last time. It was like, don't you have enough sense to be a dog? What's wrong with you? But you know what? I learned something from it. And even though I didn't fully learn it in the moment, but you can be present in the moment. What do you do? What do you do? You've got to create boundaries. Jesus created boundaries. How did he do it? Went to the mountaintop. That's a spiritual boundary. You move to a higher place. Add all this stuff. The rational mind that created this mess is not going to solve it. The second was going out into the desert where it's quiet. Quieting your mind. First spirit, then mind. Getting away and unplugging, letting people do what they got to do. Only doing the things that you get a yes on. And then the third one's going out on a boat. He was not a human doing. He was not a portable hospital. He didn't constantly, he would as much retreat as engage. There was a balance. He'd go on his boat, and that water was the emotions. He was above it in his boat, in a safe space, but fully engaged with the deep felt emotions. And then, of course, you remember the Garden of Gethsemane when he was in crisis. When you're in crisis, you've got to get away. You've got to get in the nurturing heart, the garden of the heart, which is really found here. How do you do that? I can't tell you how to do that. Well, I can. I do. In fact, I tell you every week. So, one way is to meditate and to pray. Mother Teresa told all of her people in Calcutta, you cannot stay with me unless you meditate and pray for an hour and play for an hour. Play games for an hour every day. And I had a Catholic priest friend who said, I pray for a half hour a day, and when I'm too stressed and busy, I pray for an hour. I double it. Engaging, being present, and withdrawing and doing the things you need to do. And being willing to say no to things that aren't yours to do, which brings me to the joke, which they laughed at 9, so now you are obligated to laugh. I said it. But it was about the minister who came into a church, same minister for 40 years, and he was a small church, and he was a wonderful minister, but he retired. And he stayed in that town. And this new minister was there, but he brought in new programs, and he would minister the programs and do the new things and to teach all the spiritual growth stuff. And the church was growing. So he stopped doing some of the things that the former minister did, like mowing the lawn and doing the hedges and all the different things. And some of the elders in the church were very offended because he was not doing his job as they understood it to be. So the group of them got together and they sat him down, and they were loving about it, but they said, our former minister used to mow the lawn and do the hedges. Have you considered taking his approach, doing that? Have you considered that? And he said, yes, I have, but I've asked him and he doesn't want to do it anymore. So, in your life, being willing, and we're coming up on family time, right? Thanksgiving, Christmas. It isn't that we have to be resistant. We don't have to be defensive. Just saying yes. Jesus said, let your yeses be yes and let your no's be no. You don't say, heck yes and hell no. I mean, it's having it clear, just saying it and doing what you need to do, and let people have their feelings. I'll never forget the little girl we had in front of the church at the end of the service, And I asked them, what do you do when people are misjudging you? And she raised her hand. She was 2 or 3 years old. She said, I let them have their feelings. I let them have their feelings. Let people have their feelings. Set good boundaries. Have good boundaries. There was boundaries. There was also closure. Having closure, which is allowing processes to not be complete, but knowing that you are complete. My processes may not be complete, but I am complete. Together? My processes may not be complete, but I am complete. I am complete. Remember? Jesus started something in emotion 2,000 years ago, which by no means is complete. But he didn't say, your processes are complete. He said, my joy will be complete in you. Your joy will be complete. You can bring your joy to the situation and let it be in process. Things are going to keep moving, keep growing. There will always be these things to deal with, but you can be complete. You can have value. You can be complete. You can decide, I don't have to make everything perfect out there. I can let things be in process and be at peace in my heart and my beingness because I am already complete. And what I do is enough. What I do is enough. What I'm engaging with, the action, if you put your whole heart into it, that is enough. You are enough. That I found this last week, the letter that Lynn wrote me in 1992, when I didn't even know her name. I thought her name was Mickey. And she wrote me this letter, and it talked about the star thrower. You've heard this story, but I showed this to Lynn. She says, my handwriting's not even the same anymore. It's not. But it was so beautiful, and you've heard this before, but it's about being present fully in a process without needing it to be complete. You are complete in your service. One day a man was walking along a sandy beach where thousands of starfish had been washed up on the shore. He noticed a girl picking up a starfish one by one and throwing them back into the water. The man watched the girl for a few minutes and asked the girl what she was doing. The girl replied, I'm returning the starfish to the sea, otherwise they'll die. He asked the girl how saving a few starfish, when so many were doomed, would make any difference whatsoever. The girl picked up another starfish, and as she threw it back into the sea, she said, well, it's going to make a difference to this one. Doing what's yours to do. Not what should I do, but what is ours to do. Just ask yourself, where in my life am I feeling obligated? Where in my life am I doing things out of a sense of, I don't know what, guilt, obligation, fear of recrimination or rejection, and making the decision, no, I'm going to do what's mine to do. And then you can serve. One of the things they found was loving spiritual service kept people from burning out. But it's not service that's tied to a result. It's service that is there to serve. To serve. And of course, it's for your benefit, and it will make the difference that it makes. And you don't have to burn yourself out in doing it, but doing what you can do. And not neglecting to do what is yours to do, but doing what you can do. So there was boundaries, there was closure. There is simplicity. Simplicity. What did Einstein say? Everything should be made as simple as possible, but no simpler. And he was talking about scientific theories. It's called Occam's razor. It's an old monk in the 1400s said that things are true the more simple they are. Keep it simple. They found this out in scientific theories. If you have two theories, one's complicated and one's simple, pick the simple one. It's going to be the true one. And in your life, if there's a complicated way to live your life that keeps you running around in a circle like a squirrel in a cage, or there's a simple way, pick simplicity. Keep it simple. Be present. Do what's yours to do. Jesus called it, seek first the kingdom, and then the things will take care of themselves. The kingdom is simplicity. The kingdom is the now moment. The kingdom is being present with the dog. The kingdom is throwing the starfish back. The kingdom is that thing that you need to do, that's yours to do. When you ask, say, oh, that's mine. No, those other things aren't mine, but this one is mine. Making sure that you're focused on the essentials in life, simplifying your life. boiling things down to their essentials and asking yourself, is this serving, and finding out what you're really living for and saying, is this serving that? Is this serving my spiritual purpose? If it's not, you don't need to do it. If it is, then do it with your whole heart. And the final one is value. Value is knowing that you are a being of worth, that you are a being of value, that you don't have to fill an inner hole with outer things, whether it's drugs or relationship addiction or burnout, workaholism, any of those things. You can, okay, this is all fine, but this doesn't define me. I'm a being of value. I'll never forget the last year or so of James Philip Freeman's life. He struggled with this and then he came to an awareness. He'd been a poet. He said, I've been a poet since I was 8 years old. And now I'm not writing poetry. He just wasn't writing it. And he says, and I don't know who I am. Who am I if I'm not the person who does this poetry? And then he grappled with it. And before the time that he finally passed, he came to peace with it. He realized that he wasn't his product. He was the being that created it regardless. So whatever's going on in your life, you are not those things, those results in the end. You are already valuable. You are already valuable in the heart of God. You already have value. And you can decide right here and now to live in that value. If you know your own value, then you can take a risk. If you already know your own value, then you're not so afraid of failure because failure, what? Failure is part of life. Failure is normal. What we call failure is just learning experiences that we have. This is a cheesy analogy, but I read somewhere about why there's dimples on golf balls. You know that? It's because the Scottish would hit the ball, which were smooth, and then when it would get scuffed up and kind of messed up, it would go farther. That the imperfections on the ball made the ball go farther, and so they institutionalized it with dimples on the golf ball. You know? Your imperfections are fueling the growth and the movement in your life. So you are a being of value regardless of whether your golf ball has dimples or not. You are the being, the essence of God expressing in this universe. So, how do we set boundaries? How do we experience Thanksgiving? How do we bring our value and the being that we are to life? By expressing in full joy, by placing our joy in situations without getting attached to them and knowing we have a boundary. They are not who we are. Those situations, they have closure. We can be in process with things and we can keep things simple. So just close your eyes and open your heart and know in this now moment, you're already whole and complete. You already have value. And just simplify and realize the value that you are will express. You just ask, what is mine to do? Let me do that. Let me hone my intuitive skills so that I know. So that when I ask, I get a yes or a no. So that I know what it is I need to do or what I don't need to do. So that I have closure with the situations in my life exactly as they are. My joy is full. My joy is complete. Even if it is not complete. That I have good boundaries. So I can channel the energy of the beingness that I am in good and constructive ways. I take this thought into my Thanksgiving. And I live my Thanksgiving in a different way. And I bring my whole self, my whole heart, my whole joy and appreciation to life itself. I'm grateful. So I am irrepressible. Together? I am irrepressible. Yeah, might as well be, you know? Okay. So we're beginning this process by moving our energy into a sense of gratitude. Charles Fillmore said the most important thing that you can ever do is to live each day with joy, because misery is optional. And we've got to live each day with joy. The day is waiting for your joy. You say, the conditions will bring me joy. No, it's the opposite. You will bring your joy to those conditions. They will be what they are, but your experience will be transformed as you bring your joy and your appreciation, your gratitude, your thanksgiving. Take a deep breath and we let it out, and we set aside all the papers in our hands because we don't need them. This is a now moment experience. And we take another deep breath and open our hands. We feel the energy and the life in the palms of our open, empty hands. We remember that Thanksgiving really is bringing our joy and appreciation to this now moment. And to do this, we have to create the spirit of thanksgiving with our hearts, with our minds, with our gratitude, with our appreciation. And so we do as Jesus did. When he needed to get away and renew and recharge his batteries, he went to the mountaintop. So we lift up to that higher place within us, the spiritual part of us. We leave all the physical circumstances behind. We let them be. I let things be and I lift up. Feel this in your heart. I let things be and I lift up. He went out into the desert, quieting his thoughts, quieting his mind, getting away from all inputs. I move into the quiet space. I move into the quiet space. Move. Be there now. He went out on a boat in the water. On top of, but not involved with his emotions. The psalmist said, "He leadeth me beside still waters." But here he was on top of the waters, in the boat of his being, the stillness, running deep, deep-hearted stillness. Feel it. Imagine an expanse everywhere around you, still waters that run deep. And you are in your boat, and you're being refreshed and renewed on every level of your emotions. Absorbing all the good energy. Lifted up above your feelings, but fully present with them. In the safe space of the boat of your being. And just dwell there for a moment. I am fully engaged in this now moment. I'm lifted up. I quiet my mind. I rest above my feelings, fully engaged in this now moment. And I bring my gratitude to this now moment. I bring my joy. Jesus said, your joy will be complete. Your joy is complete even if the things in your world aren't complete. You are complete. You are a being of value. So just thank you. Thank you that in this moment I choose to be complete. I choose joy and I give thanks. Grateful. So it is. So we bring that God our own into Thanksgiving. We bring this forward, and our Thanksgiving blessing is I give in gratitude and I receive abundantly. Together,
I give in gratitude and I receive abundantly.
And silently. And again aloud together.
I give in gratitude and I receive abundantly.
And so it is. Amen.